All right.
Let's roll it.
Hey, what's you doing? How you doing? This is Amon Green, your host to On My Block podcast, the Green Bay Packer podcast, hosted by myself and my good friend and former teammate Mike Wall. Mike, man, how you doing?
I'm doing great, brother.
All right, I'm on Daddy daycare right now. I got or Grandpa daycare. I got my little one right here.
Oh yeah, good. That's great. Hey, we need some expert opinion this week.
Hey, the way it's going with some of these, we'll talk about hirings later. But you're right, man. Some of these hirings and in the football this week was interesting. So
I'll say this, AG. I'll say this: in the last 6 games,
right.
we bet point spreads. I've been 0 for 6. No,
Yeah,
sorry. I was 1 and 5 because the Rams was 3.5. They won by 3.
There you go. And that's why I don't mess around with that. None of the betting. Like I bet on a sure thing when I know okay, it's a blowout. I'll win my $50 and be happy.
I'm literally the human condition that insists on like using rooting for the underdog, rooting for whoever's down at the time, right? So, and I vote with my heart. Like it's so it feels so stupid.
And that's kind of like me though. That's why I don't bet. I vote with my heart. I go with my, I'm like, that's why I don't mess around with that. But we had some crazy games between, Bengals and Chiefs, 49ers, Rams. And so we'll start off here with the Chiefs. And I'm just like, and I saw plays where Pat Mahomes was doing a little too much. Like he was trying to make something happen when sometimes that's a good player. You got to realize, okay, the defense has me or has us on this play. Throw it away. Take the sack. Protect the ball. But he was trying to be that cheat code that he was when he first got in the league. And we talk about cheat codes for other players later in this podcast. So yeah, that was my first observation. It's like, no, don't you know better? You're smarter than that. You're a better athlete. And why are you just trying to make that extra effort play?
Dude, and it's one of those things. So they're up 21-3.
Yep.
I mean, this is why we love football, though, honestly. Because you and I don't have any emotional connection to this game whatsoever, really. Right. So we just watch the games. Who cares, right? So you watch the game, they're up 21-3, and you're like, man, this team is unstoppable. They're amazing. And then he makes that mistake with 5 seconds left to not dump the ball. He inexplicably throws it to Tyreek Hill. He's covered by 2 guys. They get tackled. So instead of being up 24 or 28-3, now they go in. Then they don't come out the next first series of the second half swinging. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh, it's going to happen again. And You're right, man. It's like Patrick Mahomes in the beginning of the year was trying to take those big shots, and then they became a more efficient offense. And they were taking – it's like more plays to get – or excuse me, not a more efficient offense. They were willing to play small ball. Like it was taking more plays to score touchdowns. But they were – all of a sudden, they were doing well again. And then yesterday, just kind of like in the second half – and what was nuts for me is if you watch the first half, they spent a lot of money in draft picks and whatnot on Orlando Brown Jr.
Yeah.
Right? And then I know he made the Pro Bowl and everything. This goes to show you like how ridiculous that is. Trey Hendrickson was beating the brakes off that dude all day, but Mahomes was getting rid of the ball in the first half. But go watch the tape again. That dude was eating all day in the first half, and then all they did is the Bengals defense. They switched to a little more zone so they could play up on the line of scrimmage a little bit more. Right, so play like a 2-deep shell, a couple fire zones here and there. But guys that were getting off their blocks in the first half started getting home in the second half. And dude, Pat Mahomes was like he did that little pirouette deal in the first half and made that play.
It made it work.
Like, that works once, right? Usually when you watch that, you see it a second time. It's like we might have some problems here. So
the second time he got sacked.
Second time he got sacked. Third time he got sacked. But the momentum of the game, though, it was like not just Mahomes, everybody on offense just seems flustered and down and deflated after they missed on Tyreek Hill's play with 5 seconds left in the second quarter.
Right. And like I say, then watching Joe Burrow, and I say going with momentum in the game, and we saw the momentum change, obviously, with with that second half, coming in kind of slow, kind of dead and then the momentum, like I said, the momentum goes to the Bengals. But then there's Joe Burrow, and I'm watching him. I don't know if you can hear over the baby talk. Watching him, like you mentioned it, he is somebody that obviously getting sacked. I think he realized, you know what, it's just part of the job, because that's how he was taking it. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna get hit. I'm gonna get beat up, but I expect that. And I don't think a quarterback should not have that mindset. But when you see that, since the quarterback does have that mindset in Joe Burrow, it's a problem for the opposing team because then he doesn't get rattled. He doesn't get flushed because the guy that does get rattled, that is obviously has more experience. I wouldn't say better at the time, but has more experience is Tom Brady. Now, Tom Brady, we all knew when he got off his point, when you got in his sack, you got him sacked, then it was a problem. Then for him, and then the opposing team could then unleash. We saw it in Super Bowls and stuff like that down the line. So
this guy's got. And we talk about being a cheat code, man, but he's. To me, Joe Burrow is something that he might wreck the idea of every foundational truth that is right in this league with quarterback play and what matters and what doesn't. He might break it because he's running an effective offense, getting pressured, sacked, hit, and everyone like yesterday. I know they only had one sack, dude. Chris Jones was in the backfield pretty much every play.
He was sleeping in the backfield.
And the evasiveness, his ability to make plays off schedule, his ability to use his legs, he's sneaky athletic. I don't know that I've ever seen a team have success when they're that inefficient on offense. Put it this way, we were talking earlier. If they had any other quarterback running that offense with those play calls, with that offensive line, they would have to fire that entire. They certainly wouldn't be in the AFC Championship. No. They would have had to have fired everybody on their offensive staff for the head coach not to get fired.
Yeah,
I mean, they were the worst team in the league 2 years ago. They were 4-11-1 last year, and then this guy is just I don't care how many times I get hit, just keep calling the same plays. I'll take it. I can fix it. I can fix it. And he's the first guy we've ever seen that can just. And they just believe in it, man. And everybody starts playing a little bit better. Yeah. It's just amazing. He's so mentally tough. I don't think we've seen a guy that has the mental toughness that he brings to the table, except for the GOAT, man. I don't want to compare him to Tom Brady, but who else are you going to compare him to?
Right now, at this moment,
as far as what he's bringing to the table right now. He's completely changed how I even perceive football right now. This is insane.
Yeah, it was something. I know for me, and I don't know, you've probably done this to yourself before every game when we played. I know for me, it was like this. I'm a running back, and I'm going to get hit 100% of the time. Get over it, Amon. That was my mindset. Because, people football is too physical or, man, because we knew players that we played with or against. They were like, man, this is for the birds. I'm making sure I'm going to make it out of safe. Hopefully I'm healthy at the end of my career. But I'm like, bro, this is football. I'm like, so – don't get mad as people chip you, push you in the back, make you fall, trip, kick you in the gut when you're on the ground. It's a physical sport. It's, so what's your problem? Why are you out here? I've run into guys, I remember from Little League on up. Amon, what's wrong with you, man? Why you hit like you hit? I'm like, well, it's physical. And I think that's the mindset Joe Burrow has. But also, I'm like, I wonder, sitting in meetings, is Zach the head coach is like, hey, this is what we got for O-line. you might have.
So I've seen this happen in Miami. This happened in Miami, and it was Tannehill. And you can't not every quarterback. I know other quarterback can just sit there, and it's not that he's Lamar Jackson's more elusive. He can run for more yards, or it's Patrick Mahomes is elusive too. But we saw. Who a lot of people think is the best talent in football, and Patrick Mahomes yesterday. We saw the way that pressure affected Patrick Mahomes in the second half.
Exactly.
And then we saw this guy, dude, he doesn't even have a pulse. It's absolutely, it's mind-blowing. And it's not just about when we talk about mental toughness, we can talk about situational football. This guy is willing to just take what you can give. And that's kind of why I think about him and I think about Tom Brady in the same light. One thing that I always respected so much about Tom Brady is that Tom Brady will take a 15-play drive all day. He doesn't care. You all throw checkdowns. They invented in New England, they invented the wide receiver screen. You know what I mean?
Pretty much.
Wes Welker and all those guys.
Yep,
so
I remember.
They'll take those 15-play drives. And Joe Burrow's no problem. I'll take 5-yard checkdowns all day, man, until you give me what I want. And I know exactly where I'm going. And when number one is singled up, you can guarantee he's catching.
I'm eating. Yeah, I'm eating with him. That's what he's saying to everybody on the defensive side. He didn't do a whole lot, but he did. He got some catches in terms of we're talking about Jamar Chase. He was able to get open a few times. At times, obviously, when he needed, when his quarterback needed him to get open and make the catch. And then like for Burrow, I mean, the run game in the Dixon, doing his thing, was able to run the ball efficiently. Which obviously then creates another problem for the Chiefs defense. We're like, okay, we got a guy in the quarterback position that doesn't care about getting sacked. He's going to still throw the ball. He's going to still run the offense. But then now the run game woke up a little bit. It was just enough there for the run game to make the whole offense for the Bengals, stay in the game, basically, along with Perine. Perine had the wide running back screen that basically got him going and get a score on the board before halftime to bring it 21-10. And I'm like, okay. Even then, I was still doubtful. I was like, it's only first half, still a lot of football left. But then when I saw, like you said, the mistakes, like the one interception that Pat Mahomes threw.
You're talking about the third quarter. They got 20-10 in the third quarter.
Right, 30 words. Yeah. Right. But the interception to the D lineman, when you have two D linemen there, I'm like, come on, Pat. Like, if I'm a coach, I'm like, Pat, come on. You have two D linemen. And these are athletes. These are not just D linemen from the high school level or little league that if you throw the ball at them, it's going to catch them and hit the ground. No, these are guys that are going to catch, like he said, he pat the ball, put to himself, caught it, and then boom, it's an interception.
AG, what about you just look at, again, to contrast the Super Bowl winner with the second-year player. What about the sack fumble where Joe Thuney picks up the ball, luckily, and it saves their season?
Right.
So he had the ball in like it was the first and goal, and they ended up on like the 20-something yard line because he's giving up these sacks, running around the backfield. It's just like, it's one of those deals where when it happens, here's what happens. This is the NFL now too. When he does that and they score to Travis Kelce in the back of the end zone, or they hit that, I think the first one he hit Tyreek Hill in the back of the end zone.
It was Tyreek first and then Chad.
Right. Everyone goes, oh, they're amazing. And then the next 4 times he does it, he has sacks, throwaways, fumbles. It's all bad. And everyone's like, oh, what is he doing? It's like, dude, you can't have it both ways.
No.
Right? As fans, as people who just love the sport, like, you can't have it both ways. And with Mahomes, it was just like, he's at 4 AFC championships in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Won 2, lost 2. Super Bowls, 2. Won 2, lost 2.
Mm-hmm.
And now you start going like, I wonder if given how he played in the second half, that was very Aaron Rodgers, Packers versus Niners game, right?
Correct.
So you just kind of wonder, like, because he's so talented and they're so good and they did such amazing things the week before that you just go, okay, are we just going to say hats off to Lou Anarumo and the defensive unit for the Bengals for making some subtle adjustments, but really for that defensive line, for getting on Hubbard and Hendrickson in particular, starting to get home really bad on those tackles.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, the Chiefs just feel like they panic, and they don't seem like the kind of team that should be panicking, especially in that overtime. They get the ball after what happened last week. It was just very perplexing, man. There's no way they should have. It's another one of those games where you go, dude, there's no way they should have lost that game.
Exactly. And let's just talk about overtime. Okay. First 3 plays, when the run game is working, Edwards-Helaire is running the ball.
Yep.
The kid McKinney that was in Minnesota is now here, or is picking up yards, 3-4 yards a pop. First 3 plays of the series in overtime, all passes. And you got Eric Bieniemy, who is a former running back, and I'm like, you got 14, you got a whole quarter,
right?
3 timeouts. To me, it's like regular game plan. Just run, pass, run, pass, run, pass. Don't even need the deep ball right away. Let's get into the 20-yard line. Then we create a problem for the Cincy defense. But they just gave it to them by saying, you know what, we're trying to win right now. On 3 plays, and this is how I'm seeing it. On 3 plays, trying to throw it to Travis, and then finally Tyreek gets to pick, the ball to him, gets padded off, deflected, and then the safety catches it. And I'm like, you got 3 plays. The first 3 plays is not a run in them to at least get your first down. Because I remember when we had our, we were out there, is get the first down.
Right.
If we're in a game-winning drive, let's get the first down. Then everything gets moving. If we got to run, pass, run, get that first down, and then boom, the offense is like, okay, everybody in the offensive huddle is like, good, we got a first down. This is a good step. As a coordinator, in terms of Bieniemy and the head coach Andy Reid, they've been around long enough, just as well as we have, to say, let's do that. Let's get the ball. Let's get that first down, and then we'll see what we got the Bengals defense backs against the wall. They got a basic. Everybody knew when that coin flipped and it said Chiefs ball. Everybody's like, prop bets going, Chiefs winning. That was happened on that coin. Even Joe Burrow admitted it in the press after the game. He said, when that toy, he said, I was like, this might be game over. And he's just being real and honest, because it was because of what they've done. Obviously, when they actually pick apart a team and go down the field methodically, play the offense without the mistakes. And I'm just saying, so that was more on the coaching staff than actually Pat Mahomes in terms of the play calling. But obviously, the execution is on Pat and the offense. But just the play calling to set your players up for success. That was one series that was not it. That was actually setting them up more just to rush the ball and not really realize that you have 15 minutes to take the clock down, drive down the field. Even if at worst case, they stop you in red zone, kick a field goal, because then now defense got to step up. I take those odds better than trying to just go 3 plays past 10 yards or more when you don't even have to do that. It was like, that part was interesting to me.
It's so hard because when they go down to tie with the field goal, and they get down there, basically they just play catch with Kelsey to get down there, right? More or less. Right. And then they do have the 1st and goal, and they should have scored a touchdown, and they get backed up, and all these things happen. And so, like, for me, you put yourself in the position of a player and a coach there. You go, okay, well, do we feel like we have momentum right now or not? Because we did get all the way down there throwing the ball. Then we ran the ball a couple times, got sacked a couple times. Like, all these bad things happened, got pushed back. So do we feel like we're lucky to be here right now, or are we pissed off that we didn't score the touchdown? Like, how do we feel this game? Because we just literally got the ball back immediately, right?
Right.
So, but it always goes back to this. You think you have the best quarterback of this generation in your backfield. You want to make these plays, and you sail a couple balls. I don't know if the Tyreek Hill ball is it tipped? How's that work? But it was double coverage.
It was double coverage. Let's just start there first. It's double coverage.
It's the same Devontae Adams pass in the playoffs where you go, I know you're going to your best player, but damn, man, there's got to be somebody else there. He's such a good player. It's like it's so hard to get on him because he does such amazing things. But it just when a second-year quarterback looks like Neo from the Matrix, dude. Like every in the second half of the game, and he's showing you up as Pat Mahomes. It's my hat's off more to Joe Burrow, because I think, to me, I think Zach Taylor, congratulations to you and your staff to get them to believe that they could be in this position. But when we look at the sacks, we look at the offense, when we look at the team makeup, it's like Joe Burrow. I don't think I've ever seen a team in football, because football is the ultimate team sport.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a team more singularly affected by one dude, or maybe if you want to go him and Jamar Chase, just like the belief, like, oh man,
we could do this.
We can win a Super Bowl with these two guys. Like, not in 5 years, like now. They think I've literally, like I said, they have changed, like what makes sense to me. We'll get into it later, but like they've changed with common sense in the NFL to me.
No, for sure. Like Burrow's background, I know he has the ties back to Nebraska. His dad or somebody was on the coaching staff right before I got there as a freshman, like in the mid 90s. So I know he has that. Somebody that coached along with Coach Osborne, kind of took his methodology of coaching and understanding. And basically, and he was, and I don't know if I mentioned you, but Coach Osborne, he was a mental guy. He would get in our heads and have us breathing fire before a game.
You said he was a torturer.
Was that?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say he tortured you. He got into our heads.
No, in other ways, in good ways. But I'm saying, I was going to say this, then we can move on to this next topic. He would get into our heads pre-game, do his prep talk for the game, have us breathing fire without saying one cuss word, without degrading the other team, without putting the other coach down, nothing negative. It was all positive, and we were like ready to go. So Burrow's dad or a family member learning from a guy like that, they call him Dr. Time. I think he has a obviously sports psychology degree for sure. So yeah, just coming from that, having that background in him, and then I think his dad was a scout too for the NFL and for teams around the NFL and college football too. So he's been around certain folks, and as a kid growing up, and so that kind of another layer that entails that pocket awareness and just team awareness. Getting beat up is like, what up? This is just like rain in the Bahamas. It's going to happen. So what's up?
You're also talking about the details of the sport that are so important to us that we don't spend enough time on. Like
exactly.
Like you and I have this conversation all the time. This is what I talk with athletes about all the time is we're not the best at the basics anymore. And like Tom Brady, again, I'll use that comparison and, in a very, very lightly compare those two, but
these guys are really, really good at the basics of the sport. And for a guy like Burrow, that's probably more of just like his football intelligence, because he hasn't been able to rely on this like outstanding athleticism that some of these other guys have, even though he was first pick and everything. Like his football intelligence is off the charts, man. And his footwork's great, throws great balls. He's more sneaky athletic and everything. But you could just tell like the trip here was a little bit more of a struggle for him. And he's had to pick up more details and pick up more tricks of the trade than maybe some of these other guys who come out early that we have high expectations for because of arm strength, because of tangibles. This guy's a little bit different, man. He doesn't – nobody's saying he's the fastest, the strong. He might damn well be the smartest, though, and he's definitely the best under pressure.
Definitely.
Super impressive, man.
I agree to both. I agree to both because going into talking about is Burrow the next Tom, and I compare that, I would say yes because he's got to his point of, I would say, success a lot sooner because Brady was in the offense for the Patriots offense for about 3 years before Bledsoe got hurt.
So
2 years.
Brady won his second year. So this is the crazy thing. If Burrow wins, so you think about Brady won his second year. I want to see Pete Carroll and Russell won their second year. Yep. There's something, there's a stat where like if you win your second year, you become a dynasty because blah 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 blah, right? Because the coaching staff gets new contracts and everything. But yeah, there's some similarities here.
Right. And so with that being said, okay, now thanks for the correction. I got it. So, but still, what I see in him is that like we already talked. We've been talking about it for the last 20 minutes. The confidence, and now he's so young. I mean, he's a little bit younger than Brady was, so I know that much. And so now his talent is definitely obviously his mind, and then his arm, and he now he just got to then year over year. If it's Zach, if it's the quarterback coach there in Cincy, teach him every little thing about being a quarterback, in terms of the X's and O's, reading coverages, knowing pre-snap right away, okay, I'm going to this guy. Don't think about nobody else. Because I remember one time it was during the Patriots run, and I heard a little clip about how some of the quarterback meetings went for the Patriots in terms of game planning. And they had so many backup quarterbacks that were once starters that was on that quarterback in that quarterback's room at one time. So what they would do was take, we'll say to a quarterback, what's your favorite throw? We'll put that in the game plan. What's your favorite throw? You want the slant? You want the comeback? All right. So Tom would say, for example, I like the slant route. I like to throw that. Okay, that's a 5-yard route, 6-yard route. And then I think it was Brock Heward's brother was in there. He said, all right, I like the comeback. All right, we're going to design. So the first game plan is whatever we have designed for Tom. The next one is for Heward, but Tom is going to use it. We're going to switch to Heward. Then it was like 2 more quarterbacks. I like to throw the screen passes, and then I like the deep ball. So you have 4 game plans for one quarterback. So that's where Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, obviously Josh McDaniels, who we'll talk about later, will all look like geniuses because they're changing the same, game plan, like replacing a whole game plan, but one guy is running it. It was Tom. And then so get into a level with that with this Burrow kid with Joe, it's going to be interesting. Hopefully later down the line for Cincy fans coming down for them. Like I said, it's been 30-something years. I remember watching a game when the 49ers played the Bengals way back in 1988. I was 12 years old. I was 11 years old when I watched that game. So just think about that in terms of what could potentially be moving forward with this kid and his mental mindset of playing the quarterback position.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. And well said.
Yep. So, all right. So we go to And I agree with your first line here for the Rams game. It says this game was a return to the mean game for me. Me too. I was like, ooh, I'm like, they hitting. They are hitting out here. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. There's some physical aspect to it, and this was going to be a trench game because of the personalities that they have for San Francisco. Certainly both sides of the football, and then obviously Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and all those guys on the defensive line for the Rams. But I also kind of looked at that like they've had this great run. Jimmy Garoppolo's averaging like less than 200 yards passing a game in the playoffs, and the 49ers, like, they had to play defense. They had to run the football. And the one thing that they probably didn't want to do, and I don't want to beat up on Jimmy G because everybody else can do that. But if you're looking at the Rams, it's like, let's just make sure Jimmy has to beat us, right? Let's stop the run. And the announcers were talking yesterday about how he doesn't have any sacks, and Aaron Donald has. Dude, watch the line of scrimmage. The line of scrimmage was being won by the Rams' defensive line and linebackers. The Niners could not run the ball, particularly in the second half like they wanted to. And that was the difference in the game, because when it came down to it, when they came back, because you knew Stafford and that offense was going to put some points on the board eventually, when they came back from the 10-point deficit, Jimmy G had 2 chances to go out there and win the game. And I should say Jimmy G and the 49ers offense had chances to win the game, and they were put in a situation that they're not comfortable with because they couldn't run the football. And it ended up biting them. And there's like a crazy stat, AG, when you talk about Shanahan and the games that he's lost in the playoffs.
Talking about Kyle Shanahan?
Talking about Kyle Shanahan, like the amount of points they've been outscored by in the second half of games, dude. Like cumulatively, it's like 60, 70 to very, very little. And it's just one of those things. Yeah, it's just one of those things where for whatever reason, they get into the second half of these games and it's like who's on first a little bit, like who's going to be the guy. And Deebo Samuel doesn't touch the ball for the last 10 and a half minutes of that game. Like, are you
that makes sense.
No wonder he's crying on the sidelines at the end of the game. It's like, dude, he's the best player on the field. Like, what are we doing? It was as good as a coaching staff as they have, and as good as they've done to get to this point. To come and beat the Green Bay Packers, like beat the Rams in the regular season finale. Like, they have done such a good job. They're the team that I was rooting for because they beat the Packers, and it's like, well, if you're going to lose, like, might as well lose to the guys who win the NFC Championship.
I'm there with you.
It was very perplexing at the end of as the game closed down. Why are we not putting the ball in the best player's hands? Why are we allowing the game to be decided by our quarterback when maybe we should rely on that offensive line running game, or somehow get the ball into Deebo's hands and see what happens? Like, I would take my shots there. But again, hats off to the Rams. I haven't said all that.
No, for sure. Hats off to the Rams and the defense, and I say just the hit quality of the game for both sides of the ball. But I think sometimes coaches get to the point where they're overthinking because it's the moment, and leaving a guy out of the mix in terms of Deebo Samuels, in terms of Kyle Shanahan, and knowing what they did to get there, just was probably overlooked because he's looking at where the situation is, what the clock, the time on the clock, and then feeling that pressure. As we know, pressure breaks pipes. So when you're not ready for that pressure, or you're unexpecting to it, like you knew it was coming, but you're like, oh my God, it's here. And then you're looking at the play sheet. All right, what's my 3rd and 15 plays? What's my first and medium? When you're in that moment, sometimes you shouldn't even have to look for it. You're like, all right, I know what I'm doing. I know exactly play call I need right now because I want to keep the same thing that got us here going. Along with the play action, heavy run offense to get the ball up the field and to just keep sending the message that we're going to be physical until this game is over. So,
listen, hats off. You come back from a big deficit in the fourth quarter. Stafford. Listen, the Niners could have ended the game with it. Was it Pratt's?
The interception.
He drops the dime piece, right? Yeah, I mean, there's mistakes on both sides of this game, but next play. He hits OBJ down the sideline for like 35 yards plus a 15-yard penalty.
Yep, because they hitting
right. They go down and they score. Essentially put the game in Aaron Donald and Von Miller's hands, and Jalen. Don't not forget Jalen Ramsey, although he dropped the pick too.
Right.
But you start going Stafford, for all of the people out there who want to doubt him. It looks like
he came to
play. Right now. man, the Lions are a really bad organization because this guy had nothing. It was over 3 in the playoffs after like 10, 12 years. And he's going to the Super Bowl 1 year removed from the Lions. This dude's going to the Super Bowl. And you got to feel happy for him, man, because he was stuck in football purgatory forever. And I know we're Packers guys and everything, but still, man, it's like you and I know how lucky we are as players to have gone to situations where we could blossom and develop and grow, right?
Yes.
And when I've worked with other teams and consulted with other teams, sometimes you just sit and go, dude, you don't know how unfortunate it is that you got drafted by a program who doesn't know how to develop talent. It is a damn shame because there's a lot of good players that get caught in these situations. And Stafford, he had over 300 yards yesterday. Did he have a perfect game? Absolutely not.
No.
When it mattered in the fourth quarter, did you see a guy that is a championship caliber quarterback?
Yep. We sure
yeah,
did.
man. Yeah, it looks it looks to me like all the question marks and everything. Sean McVay is like, yeah, I'm still the smartest dude around. Like this. I told you all this was a good move,
Right.
And they're good.
Yeah, it was. Definitely happy for Stafford coming from where he'd been, and it just obviously you pose the big world question. Okay, what about if Barry would have went to the 49ers or the Cowboys or Megatron would have went to the Packers or the Patriots? You know what they could have done for their career. They're still Hall of Fame. It just shows you how good they were in all that situation.
Yeah,
they're still NFL Hall of Famer.
Stafford wasn't a Hall of Famer,
True.
But I'll tell you what, if he wins this one, he is.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Right? I mean, it's literally like a light switch, right? He literally will be he's a Hall of Famer if he wins his next game, right?
I think most of the players that win Super Bowls, especially quarterbacks, running backs, or even the Super Bowl MVP, are eventually NFL Hall of Famers. Once
and he's already a top 10 numbers guy, but I think he holds the record for most fourth quarter comebacks in the last decade, but nobody cares because it was with the Lions.
That's right.
You see what I mean? It's true.
I know. I'm laughing with you. I'm like, yes, I see what you mean because I know every fan that's even Lions fans are like, they get fussed. My
best friend's a Lions fan. He's like, I'm rooting for Stafford. What do you want?
Right. I got family that's over in Detroit or Michigan, and the same thing. It's like whatever.
Hey,
and we know Gilbert too, so we understand how that works.
What do you think about so OBJ goes over and he goes over a classy move, goes and hugs Deebo Samuel. Are you I'm sitting there, the first thing I thought of was he probably whispered in his ear, it's like, bro, I know I had Baker Mayfield, dude. I got it. You know what I mean? Everybody who was, locker room's divided, he's a bad guy. OBJ looks like no one's come out smelling roses more than he has, right?
True.
Everyone said he's a great teammate. He balls out. He's got everyone knew he had incredible talent, but he's made big plays. He's had a super productive year since he got over there.
Yep.
Right. But his when you have that situation, you kind of need to resurrect your career, your career needs a makeover, whatever you want to call it. This dude is just looking so good right now because he was just just give me a quarterback who can throw me the ball. He wasn't trying to be a jerk about it. I think him and Baker were trying to have vacations together and be buddies and everything. And everyone's going to pick a side, and they sided with the quarterback, and he's just cool, man. I'll just go to the Rams.
Yeah. I mean, very, very. I say very professional moment. I mean, because for the moments if he had from the catch to then, probably for me the worst was when he went to the LSU bowl game, was handing out money to the players on the sideline. I'm like, come on, OBJ. So
he's made some mistakes.
Yeah,
he's made some mistakes.
But now, I say now, doing that to Deebo Samuels, I mean that's a sportsmanship type thing, and to see him to his road of travel where he's been in terms of teams and obviously situations, definitely a thumbs up on that. And hopefully, they could tap this thing off. It's going to be interesting. I mean, this could put possibly. This was mentioned, I know preseason, that this could potentially be back-to-back seasons where the home team gets to the Super Bowl and wins. So now we're set up for that, and so it's just interesting how that will work out. So let's head on into your favorite neck of the woods.
Yes.
Mine's too, because I would go down there and chip block for y'all. Trench warfare, Mike. So where we at with this?
Okay, so we talked about this a little before, but when you look at last Super Bowl with the Chiefs, a whole line was hurt. I went to that Super Bowl game, and I'm like,
I remember they beat up.
If the Chiefs win this game, everything I know about football no longer matters because there's no way you should be missing your 2 tackles, 3 of your 5 guys, and have against against a good Tampa Bay front and win that game. There's just no way. That means offensive line play doesn't matter.
Correct.
And so it proved that offensive line play still mattered. And I think over the course of this season, we've proven it a lot with some of the key injuries and also some of the dominance in the trenches, offensive, defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
You could make that argument too in the playoffs yesterday. But Joe Burrow has almost completely shattered that notion for me. Like Chris Jones dominated their guards.
They were
dominated their guard. I think Quentin Spain is their right guard, right? I think he tweeted out something after the game like, "What you going to say about our line now?" And I was, you're thinking like,
you can't do,
for the first time ever, your offensive line should be taking Joe Burrow to dinner.
Well, correct.
Like usually the quarterback takes the whole line to dinner, right?
Yeah.
You should be taking Joe Burrow to dinner. But that guy has completely changed the game because he's getting hit, he's getting pressured, he's getting sacked. Not only does he not give up the ball, but he evades. Like, I don't know how many sacks they could have given up if he wasn't so. I mean, he's sneaky athletic.
He's sneaky
Yesterday,
athletic.
he's running for first downs. I mean, it was just incredible that he was that. Chris Jones was that dominant. Melvin Ingram had a great game, right? But they had one sack, and all the pressures, all the other stuff that you're like, all right, that should be a pick, that should be a fumble, that should be a tackle for loss.
Right.
Just this guy made it not happen. Like he was just amazing yesterday, man.
Yeah, he did a good job. So when those pressures would happen, when he was able to get out of it, he would just throw it out of bounds, or he'd complete the pass, or he'd throw it to the ground. Like he was making those decisions that experienced quarterback more than his years, 10, 15 years in the league would say, okay, just throw it out of bounds, live to the next down. You know what? Get it out of bounds or throw it to the feet of the receivers. I can't throw it to the guy. It's double coverage. He was doing those things with the pressure because that's what I was talking about pressure earlier, where that pressure makes that quarterback, regardless of how good they are, as we saw on Pat Mahomes, that pressure was making him do abnormal things with the ball that he knew after the throw right away he didn't know. He shouldn't have thrown that ball.
Yeah, so. And I want to give a shout out, dude. I love Melvin Ingram. Like I've loved watching him since he was with the Chargers.
With the Chargers,
and he went over to Pittsburgh and things. A couple games didn't work out, but man, he's been such a force for that defense. He made all the difference in the world when they got to move Chris Jones back inside because he's a dominant player on the left defensive end, at the left defensive end position. And I just thought, he had a great game yesterday too. It's just
he did.
This Joe Burrow kid's unbelievable. When you flip the ball to the other side now, and we talked about how good Joe Burrow was, and now you talk about what happened to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
Hendrickson was beating the brakes off of Orlando Brown Jr. from the jump. Free rushes, beating them, open hits, and Mahomes is just getting rid of the ball. And again, they tightened up, and they got to Mahomes. Hubbard got to him a couple times, and it really played. It made the difference in the game. If you look at if you really look at what happened to the Chiefs in the second half, it was all those times where they got beat on 1v1 pass pro. Now Mahomes felt the pressure. He was doing he was twirling in the backfield. He was getting lost. His eyes are going to the rush instead of downfield.
Exactly.
Like they really made the difference in that game. And if you're going to point to one thing of like why did they score 3 points in the second half and overtime? See, because those two guys, but that group in particular, they were hitting home and they were really frustrating that potentially Hall of Fame quarterback, that MVP quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And like as you were talking, I was just thinking back to one game in particular where I remember at halftime, it was the game where Brett's dad passed and we played the Raiders on Monday Night Football. And I remember at halftime, we were going over game plan adjustments, and I remember, I think it was you or Marco or both of you said the same thing. I definitely was you. It was like, AG, we're getting our ass kicked out here. I don't know how you're picking up yardage right now. And I think that's where Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes in certain situations are, because we we know where the weakness or where we're getting penetrated from. I'm gonna just work off of that. When I see somebody show color of a different color jersey, then I'll just go the other way. You make those adjustments as a player, and it's all about not that they knowing that if they communicated or not, but for sure we did. So when you let me know that, I was like, all right, I'll just when I see what I see, I'm gonna make.
How dare you suggest I would admit I was getting my ass kicked in front of you? How dare you? How could you do that?
Hey, I've got my ass kicked in the game.
You're right. You're right, man. And some of a lot of that was coverage sacks, right? Yeah. But how this goes, man. We've been around quarterbacks. When you get hit a couple times, you get pressure. It goes from like, okay, first read, second. Oh, is that guy coming at me? And there was a couple where he didn't have to take off, and he did. Just
Yes.
It was uncharacteristic, and so that's why I say they really affected that game. And then you look at the Rams, and you look at the dominance of an Aaron Donald, and they're talking about, he hasn't had sacks, he hasn't done this. They dominated that defensive line, dominated the line of scrimmage in the run game. They held San Francisco to a pedestrian run game. Which, listen, if you're the Rams D coordinator, right?
Hold on.
That's your number one goal.
Yeah.
Can we make that run game pedestrian and force the ball to be thrown in order for us to lose this game, right? If we're going to lose.
Hold on.
Yep.
What's that? What's playing? What you want? Let me finish here, and I'll come help you. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Where's your water at? Go get your bottle. There you go. All right. Sorry about that, buddy.
No problem.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I think that from a game plan standpoint, they understood that the 49ers are going to live and die with their offensive line and running game, right?
Yes.
And the short passing game and stuff like getting Debo the ball in the slot and whatnot.
No, exactly.
And it just goes to show, like, you can affect the game. Like, we always talk about sacks, and they want to put statistics on TV. But you dominate the line of scrimmage, more often than not, you're going to find a level of success in this league. And it's just always good, again, as you and I, as linemen and running backs, guys who play in the box, we like that the game boils down to that more often than not.
It is. I mean, I learned that probably in Little League. I was like, man, if we got an offensive line that could do this and we got a D lineman that could do that, then you're going to have a good chance to win every game you're out there playing. And you got guys that actually want to get it done, basically get nasty and dirty here in the trenches. So it was another kid in the Rams defensive line, along with Donald from Alabama. I can't think of his name right now, but he was a problem getting in there early in the game, roughing up Garoppolo a little bit, but getting at those pressures and then slowing down the run game. I can't think of his name. I think it was don't worry about it. But like I said, D lineman along with the one, Aaron Donald, as everybody expected to, but also you got other people coming to the party doing their job, beating up the San Francisco offensive line there. So
I love both those. Like, the Rams offensive lines during the playoffs has played pretty well too.
Yeah.
They were kind of they gave up the bag a couple times in the regular season, had some bad games, looked very, very human. But you're going up against a team that, look, where they're going to take the fight to you, and obviously with the demeanor of their defense and their defensive line led by Aaron Donald, I think they've stepped up in these playoffs in general and just really been able to give Matthew Stafford the time and the space in order to make these plays. And again, we know how hard it is to play at that level, man. And in this situation, it's a really, really difficult thing to step up and be able to deliver. So my hats off to all these guys, because they're unsung heroes for sure.
For sure. All right, hey, let me get this real quick, and I'll get back with you. Hold on. What's up, baby girl? What is it? What?
This is the benefit of going live. To anybody who's out there watching, this is the benefit of going live in situations like this, because we can do I can suppose we do a Q&A.
So one thing I like to think about
when I watch football games, we always start with the offensive line. There was defensive line, that trench, because it built out. And a lot of listen, depending on who you talk to, you want to talk about the secondary. If you're an offensive player, you want to talk about the structure of the secondary, because the structure of the secondary is usually going to tell you where people are going to fill into their gaps and how the defense is going to operate. But the difference between a player watching film and a staff or coaching staff watching film is that there's a couple of reasons. You want, first of all, from a player's perspective, I am interested in the chronological order of how we run plays, because my value to your team is based on my ability to win my 1v1 matchup. At the bottom line, the absolute bottom line is, if this guy can beat the player across from him over and over and over, he holds a certain value that is going to be more than somebody who cannot do that. Now, we can have other people that are role players. We can have other people that are
that can fill in. But bottom line, if you want to be a bona fide star in this league, you have to be able to win your 1v1 matchups. And part of that is having a football intelligence that allows you to go into every play with the confidence of knowing what I like to say, with knowing the defensive player across from you, your opponent, cannot do in that situation. So given their scheme, given the down and distance, given their stance, given the tips and tendencies and the tells that they're showing pre-snap, and understanding from my perspective, from a pass rush move, from the way they use their hands, what they can and cannot do, that really allows somebody in my position to go in with the confidence of knowing, given this situation, I can start kind of playing the odds of what I think is going to happen, preparing for that. And then, of course, like defaulting to, if they do this, that, or the other, like I have an answer for it. But that is something I think from a preparation standpoint that really gets overlooked. And when we look at it from a team standpoint, we want to think about, okay, on 1st and 10, and we come out in a 21 personnel, they're more likely to run this. Their check, if we break out to a 2x2, is going to be this, and they're going to bring this guy down. The safety's going to run. They might run 38% of the time. They run a wolf blitz here. If we're in a 3x1 look on 3rd and 8+, more often than not, they like to bring pressure away from the 3x1, and they want you to look over there because we're going to drop a couple into coverage on like a drop zone blitz. And those are the things that are very, very valuable. They're valuable as a player, but they're also maybe even more valuable as a play caller. Because if you're a play caller, now I'm working scheme. I want to put our athletes in the best position to be successful, and I want to understand that scheme. And especially, I think, when you're thinking about maybe from a wide receiver perspective, a quarterback perspective, it does become, I think, especially from the quarterback perspective, a lot more about chess pieces and making sure people are in the right situations and being
All right.
Let's do it, man.
Let's do it.
Let's go back to let's just go ahead and hit let's get off my lawn.
All right. Let's head into Get Off My Lawn.
Get off my lawn.
Update of shenanigans and shugulary. People doing things in the world that we like, what in the world is going on? So what you got, Mike?
Okay, so I'm just going to start with, again, for the 3rd time this damn thing, and we'll make it quick, but the Bengals are defying logic completely. Like, I just can't fathom that a guy gets sacked that many times, the pressure that many times, and they're in the Super Bowl now. Like, why even have offensive linemen if you're going to do that? You know what I mean?
Right.
Or maybe – Why ever draft a guy again, dude? Like, I think they drafted a guy in the 1st round last year. It's like, last year. Yeah. It's like, did you even need to? What was the point? You're giving up 62 sacks. Like, this guy's like Neo, man. Guy's Matrix. But what I really wanted to talk about, when we're talking about Joe Burrow, AG, is I wanted to talk about Joe Burrow's fit. Okay.
I saw this on here.
You saw it, right? This dude looks like he should be singing a Dick in the Box video with Andy Samberg and Justin Timberlake.
One of my favorite videos, by the way.
No question. With the chain, the glasses, like the rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness. That was to me, that was all time. Is when he rolled in the day of the game in that swag, bro.
Hey, that little bit of
you almost like, I want to change all my bets. Like, if he's willing to wear that, there ain't no way he's losing this game.
Right. He got some confidence. It's like a little bit of his Louisiana teammates rubbed off of him for sure. Because he's from Iowa originally. He's from Ames, Iowa. That's where he was born. So
really?
Definitely, I looked it up. So his time in New Orleans, Baton Rouge area, definitely his teammates rubbed off on him there.
That was honestly, I see you see something, you're like, where have I seen that before? And then
that's what it was.
Yeah, dude. I was like, it was a Lonely Island Boys or whatever they're called.
Yep. Correct name. Lonely Island Boys. Oh my God, that was funny. All right, this next one. What's all this one about now? What's got?
Yeah, we talked about this before a little bit, but when you're watching these games, and we always Americans need statistics. So we make up stuff. We have Amazon Web Services Advanced Stats, StatDat. Soccer teams, Americans didn't care about soccer until they started putting in statistics that literally no other country in the world cares about. Completion percentage over 20 yards of 20-yard passes. Nobody cares. They make top speed on the field. They used to be like this. Be like And that guy over there's pretty fast. And now we're like, oh no, he runs 22.3 miles per hour. He's really fast. Like so we care, right?
I think it's a job thing. Give people jobs.
Oh yeah, that's exactly. You're absolutely right. But so we're at the game yesterday, and again, we're talking about sacks. And I think this year, if we've proven anything, man, it's like talk about pressures, talk about who's winning the line of scrimmage, right?
Right.
But we don't know quite how to do that yet because there's what constitutes a real pressure. So they keep talking about these stats when guys like Aaron Donald's the best defensive player in the game still until he retires, right? He probably will be. Yeah. I don't care who wins the defensive player of the year or whatnot. Like there's nobody better than he is.
Yeah, he's a grown man.
Yeah, when we talk about this stuff and you talk about the effect he has on the game plan, like it's so much more. It's like you almost feel like it's like stop boxing the guy in by like his sack total for the last couple of games. Like give me a break, man. I'm just not about that at all because we're on the other side of that. Like oh man, the guy just beat me for 10 pressures.
Right.
That doesn't feel any better.
No, that's just as bad. I think it's people that don't quite understand the game on our level. Same way I'm not a big stat guy, or I'll say I'm not a stat guy, but knowing the same information listen to a basketball game. And I went to a bus game with a friend of mine who is a basketball head, like he's a gym rat. And so to him, seeing Giannis do certain things, he was like, "Oh, that's nothing," But it's the big stuff that makes it the Sports Center, makes it the highlight. But he's like, "No," he said, "If you just double him, every time he comes down and then puts somebody over top and two underneath, you shut that down." That's talking about the Euro step that he does going to the hoop. Mm-hmm. So that stuff when the game, oh yeah, we could. That's an easy shutdown. It's just the people that wants to make the bigger things seem bigger than what they are. It's like, come on, no, we know better than that. That ain't nothing to the game. That helps out.
There's this merge of athletes. Like sports don't work without media, right?
Correct.
And I think one thing that all athletes at some level are advocates for are like, I wish we could all curate our own content because then we can control the narrative.
Yep.
But the truth is, most athletes want to just be good at their sport, and the media part of it is necessary to promote their brand, to get more. I mean, it's everything. The machine doesn't work without all pieces involved, right? And sometimes I think what is interesting, and I know that we felt this in Green Bay a lot. I remember very specifically, like one time we were talking, there was a guy up there who turned out to be an advocate for us all at the end, but he would write articles and you'd be like, finally we went up to him like, dude, contextually what you're saying makes no sense. Like you're just wrong. Like right. If we play bad, we'll tell you we play bad and we'll tell you why, but you got to ask. You can't just go out and like watch the game as a fan and then write something in a national paper where it makes us look bad. Well, you're just wrong. You know what I mean? Right. And so it's like that education level, which obviously is gotten better and better and better. And there's like amazing journalists out there. But I think the thing that is frustrating from a statistics standpoint is now we can throw out stats that have no contextual awareness whatsoever. And now they use these stats to pass judgment on guys. And we'll be sitting there watching the game like, well, that doesn't matter at all. What are you talking about? But exactly. That's the narrative. And that's how we control the narrative, I think, in the media. It's just, it's one of those things that's never going to be a perfect fit. Right. But sometimes it's frustrating.
Yep. No, you're right about that. So we'll move on to this next, get off my lawn. What you got here, Mike?
Yeah, just listen, like I think twice both games we dropped double-digit leads in the championship game. Like what do we do? How do you drop a double-digit lead in the championship game? Not once. This has been the best 3 weeks of football I think I've ever watched. Is that fair?
It's been pretty good. Yes.
Yeah. It's been amazing, and every game's come down to the last minute. It's been an amazing 3 weekends of football. I hope the Super Bowl is great as well. I don't know if we're going to be able to top the last 3 weeks though. When you think about the Chiefs-Bills game, you think about both championship games, overcoming double-digit leads, coming down to the last play. But, God, I mean, when you think about dropping a double-digit lead, when you think about, if you're Pratt, you think about dropping that Stafford gimme, right, and icing the game.
Right.
When you think about the Packers coming up short after that fourth and short, and we stop them on defense, and we take the ball over 4.5 minutes to go, and we still lose the game. Like you start thinking about all the opportunities, man. It's like
Like, yeah, I mean, I
It's
look
insane,
at it,
right?
right? It's insane. I look at it like when you give up that type of lead, I'm like, am I watching pro football? Is these the DBs? These are Pro Bowl DBs, Pro Bowl D linemen. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just for one series. It seems like they just are not there, or they don't know what's coming at them. It's like I'm watching an NFL game, but it just seems like they're giving up these passes, these completions, or the first down or the touchdown, just a little bit too easy. When the whole game they didn't shut them down, or they was able to adjust to what they were doing off, defensively. It was just interesting. So it just the teams somehow just go into maybe, I don't know, it's maybe complacent, say, okay, we got them, we stopped them the last drive, let's do it again. But then boom, they go right down the field, either a one-play shot play or just a nice steady drive and gets the ball in field goal range or score a touchdown. So it's just interesting. I'm like, this is pro ball. It's just, that's why you got to play the game. That's why I say everybody play the games all out. Does
it remind you at all of our 4th and 26? And that's why it's
for sure.
That's I think like when it comes down to it, I still have
all the time.
I still have feelings about that,
Yeah, I got over this feelings, that whole mindset, or not mindset, just that whole video of that going on. That's been out of my brain for a long time. So I can live life. So I can live life and be normal.
No, that's not like I hide in the corner or anything, but like when it comes up, when I see it on TV, I'm like,
nah. I went to.
Hey, let's hit these hirings, man. What you think?
Man, these hirings are to say interesting so far. McDaniels is a Raiders coach, which is very interesting. All of it's interesting. And Nathaniel Hackett, my former neighbor, he was right across the street from me, and now he's a Denver head coach. And it's just all in the same. It's just interesting because when I see even the hire from the Buffalo's Bill OC to the Giants, now he's the Giants head coach. I'm like, okay, I know as a player, and you might feel the same, going from an OC DC to a head coach, that's not an easy jump. But I guess a lot of coaches want to do that because obviously it's a pay upgrade, and then now you have a little bit more control of the facility, of what you're doing as a coach, who you're bringing in, what your scheme is. If you're a defensive-minded coach, you're going to be really good and keen and looking for certain defensive players to fit your scheme. Same with the offensive coordinator that becomes a head coach. Then, okay, we do this. I need this type of receiver. I need this type of lineman. I need this type of running back, tight end. But to me, it just still looks on. I know they called plays. They were a good play caller, but how is that going to really convert over to being a head coach in terms of hiring? And so that's my question. Only one I know out of this bunch right now, because he's done it once before, is Josh McDaniels out of Patriots. He went to Denver. He did good. Now he had an experience as that.
No, he did. Well, Denver was that was
it wasn't good. I was just looking at the time spent there. Now he understands.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just his time spent is now a notch in his belt to say, okay, at least I did this. Now I know what I did wrong or right in that situation there going in.
Yeah, the thing that's tough is, and this is, they're learning on the job, right? And so everyone's ambition is to become a head coach. And what I always think is the craziest thing, if you really think about the National Football League, you have these billion-dollar companies, you have these multi-billionaires running the companies,
basically,
and there really is no job leadership training. Like, what is the progression for a successful coach? Okay, you learn how to run your room, right? Whether you're quarterback coach, offensive line, whatever it is, right? Running back coach, you learn how to run your room. Your team has success, or your position in the team has success. You get promoted. Maybe you run a slightly bigger room, and like with the OCDC.
With the OCDC, yes, you do.
Or you go right
coordinator,
to a
special teams coordinator,
or special teams coordinator. Sorry, but then you become this head coach, and all of a sudden, like every time you go up the ladder, you actually coach less, and you're more of a CEO.
That's it,
right? And you're not being taught how to instill, like, for organizational culture in your, in your program. Like, you don't have those tools necessarily. And I think that's why a lot of guys really struggle early on. And we were talking about it before. You think about all the guys who have come from Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the last 15 years, that their first job, how does it gone? Josh McDaniels didn't really go well with Denver. We can talk about some guys. We can talk about McAdoo. We can talk about Joe.
He was here.
Guys in Green Bay didn't really do very well, right? Nope. Adam Gase didn't do very well. The list goes on and on and on. There's only Andy Reid did really well, right? Yes, Bruce Arians, and he was a little bit older, but he did really well. But you kind of have to go back to see guys who had Hall of Fame quarterbacks that transitioned into a head coach position and dominated, even though ownership, presidents, they keep looking at these same guys as like, this is the way to do it. Whereas we were talking about, Sean McVay, he doesn't have, or Zach Taylor, all that generation, that little group of that coaching tree, they're not necessarily coming. They had Goff, or they had some other guys that weren't Hall of Fame caliber. Yeah. And it was me. I would kind of look at like defensive guys or coaches that had average run-of-the-mill quarterbacks that had a little bit of success. Because I think in today's day and age, that is, from an organizational standpoint, like you have to have more of your stuff right because you don't have that guy to mask all your problems at quarterback. Right. You have to have more of your stuff right in that organization to be successful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. You got to have that the player development. You got to have those leadership skills. And two of those guys you mentioned, Bruce Arians and Andy Reid, they had that development of that player development in them. I think, did you have 1 year with Andy, or was he already gone? Okay, you had 1 year, and everybody that I played with that was a Packer, that is a Packer, and was a Packer, that spoke of Andy Reid as an assistant, said, "Oh, they loved him because I think he was a guy." And I met him once. Thank you to you and all the guys up front that blocked along your side, left and right of you, got me to the Pro Bowl. And so when I met Andy Reid at the Pro Bowl, my first Pro Bowl, and he was there 4 years in a row because he was getting Philadelphia, obviously, to the game and then losing. He was the coaching staff. His coaching staff, the Philly staff, was the head coaching staff for the Pro Bowl team. And meeting him for the first time, I said, "Oh, yeah, I get it. I would have played for him right away." I was like, he came in the meeting room, even though it's Pro Bowl, it's already laid back. Season's over for everybody. It's just, he's like, "Look, guys, this is what we're going to do. You can wear flip-flops out there." And I kind of heard that was kind of the joke thing, like, because it's just literally a jogging pace practice. But I could just sense how, okay, I just put my head in regular season mode. Like, okay, if I heard him and he's breaking down, some of the stuff did get a little serious when we start breaking down our run game, our red zone, and then third and long stuff. I could hear him getting into seriousness. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I could have played with him. I could have played for him as a head coach. I could see why Dorsey loved him. Because Dorsey, every time we talk about the second Super Bowl when the Packers played the Broncos, he was like, man, Andy was trying to keep Mike from running, to run the game, run the ball. And he wanted to put it in Brett's hand. Nothing, it was more of a decision, disagreement maybe among coaches, but that was something as a player to coach. Andy wanted to keep the ball rolling because he saw what needed to be done in terms of the run game, how it would have helped the Packers win against the Broncos in that game. So I always felt he always brings that up. So like I said, once I met him, so you got to have those player development things where you see things in players, if it's from an athletic standpoint, from a mental, and you got to address them to help them through that process as a young player. Then you could get them to do what you do. Then as a head coach, it makes your job a little easier. When you got to really dig in on a player, it's like, all right, hey, you messing up over here. What's the problem? There's something going on. Let's talk about it. You need help. What is it? So when you have a guy like Bruce, and then Bruce Arians, I heard the same thing. He'll dig in. He's like, I don't care who I'm coaching. I remember he made a comment. He's like, I don't care if it's Ben Roethlisberger or Tom Brady. I'm yelling at them all. Yep. When they mess up, I'm like, what the F you doing? Why are you throwing that ball when you know it's double covered? It's cover two or it's man on press. What's your problem? He gets on the same person. Doesn't matter their status. He's like, and that's what you got to do as a one of them coaches. So I think some of these coaches that go into these head coaching jobs don't have that factor of wearing the head coaching hat, knowing that, okay, I just manage these players, but I got to really understand these players too if I'm going to correct them when they making mistakes, because these are the 1%ers. And some of these 1%ers don't take lightly to people that don't know them very well when they're trying to correct them. And you and I both know what I'm talking about. It's like you got a coach that's going to dig in on you. It's like, and if you didn't establish that first respect level and then you have an understanding level, then when somebody digs into you, then you were like, yeah, coach, I got you. Yep, you should be cussing me out right now. I made a mistake. You know what? I'm no problem. I'm going to fix it and move on. So that's where I think some of these head coaches get stuck in the mud went the player development side of it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not saying for a second that guys like like our guys in Green Bay don't deserve these jobs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I think it's difficult because you almost have to I've said this before, man. If they were putting the coaching interviews on pay-per-view, I would spend an embarrassing amount of money to watch them.
Oh, me too.
I'm just so curious. Yeah, I'm just so curious. Like,
what could
they possibly be saying in these interviews that said that differentiate everybody else? Because I've been in a ton of interviews in my life on both sides of the table, and you just start going, what is the thing that is so impressive? I think just with the last place I was at in Miami, you could tell that the owner wanted, like, he already knew he was going to hire before they made hires.
Yeah, so that too going into the interview.
Yeah, so you just kind of like, you're like, all right, well, he didn't have to really say anything. He just had to show up, right? He had to have a heartbeat.
But I'd be really curious because there has to be, like, to your point, there has to be this natural curiosity about people when you want to be a head coach, right? It can't just be all about, I'm going to create, there's always like catchwords like, hey, we're going to have a smart, tough, disciplined football team.
Coach say, dude, that's coach speak. Coach speak.
It's like, we're going to have like loyalty and brotherhood. It's like, dude, those are all just words unless you put them into action. Do you know how to do that? Like, are you a leader? Because there's a ton of guys who know scheme. There's a ton of guys who know how to game plan. Are you a leader? And how are these presidents and owners understanding which one of these guys are leaders? Because you and I have both been in situations where they flat out hired people who were not leaders.
No.
They were smart, but they weren't leaders. And it's still amazing to me. There's 32 jobs. It's one of the best jobs in the country, right? There's only 32 of them. How do we continue to make these, like, well, it'll be interesting to see how these all play out, right? But some of these guys are going to fail, and some are going to fail because of the situation around them, and some of them are going to fail because they're not leaders. It's part of the drama. That's why we love the NFL.
Yeah. And I want success to all.
Right.
But as I know, as a player, I learned this my first year that some of the coaches, even from the heads to the assistants and the OCs and the DCs, are missing things. Not saying they got to be perfect, but I just realized my rookie year in Seattle. I was just like, I think my coaching staff at Nebraska was a little bit better than this coaching staff in Seattle. A little bit better because of what I was mentioning earlier with Coach Osborne. He could get in our heads to get us motivated to play, not only for him, but play for all the guys that was in that locker room. And then the accountability part, I think that's the biggest thing. Once you put that accountability to a player and get that understanding of what that actually means, that means doing your job, not making excuses when you don't do your job. And when you don't do your job, you don't point the finger. The only finger you pointed at is yourself, and you correct it yourself. That's when you have the room. Like you said, when you have a coach that owns the room and knows his players, when you do that, when you have players that, you know what, the coach don't even have to say nothing. We're going to just look at each other and be like, all right, we've got to fix this. This ain't about us. I mean, this ain't about the coach. This is about us playing and executing a certain way. And that's what, when I've been on good teams, that's what it looks like. We've been in that locker room. We were in that locker room together. So that's one, when I was at Nebraska, that was another locker room where the coaches didn't have to really get on us. We got on each other. Like, we knew we could do better than this. Right.
Yeah.
So when you have a coach, you have a coach that can do that.
To your point, Andy Reid, bro. Andy Reid yesterday
was
like the last play before the half. He goes, "That's on me. That's it. We got to make a better play call. Let's just move on."
And I love when coaches do that. I know I've heard LaFleur do it a few times this year in his last 3 years. When a coach puts it on him, that's the coach I want to play for. In the first, when that's to see a flag,
right?
Flag. When you say red and green, you say red flag. You see a red flag, oh my God, run out of the way. So that's actually a white flag or a green flag. That's a good flag. When you see a coach sit on the podium, press conference, mic's in your face, you got reporters asking questions, and they say, you know what, this is on me. Don't belittle my players. Don't talk about what so and so did wrong or right. This is on me. This is on my coaching staff. We made some plays. We made some calls that we thought we were going to make them, or that we thought the plays were going to work, and they didn't. So that's what we were taking. I see Mike Tomlin, him do the same thing over his tenure in Pittsburgh, and that's why Pittsburgh has had the success, even when they've had injuries, even when they had the stuff with Antonio and AB, AB and Ben, and then Before that, it was the running back. I can't think of his name right now. Played at Michigan State, but Le'Veon Bell. When his issues were going on with contractual wise, that team was still playing high end football because the players was like, okay, yeah, we get what's going on. Okay, Le'Veon, that's your business. Ben AB, that's your business. But we got to still play football. We got to work through all that, go out here and play high quality Pittsburgh Steelers football. When I see that team over the years since he's been there, even before there, Bill Cowher was there, same type of football, high end football. That's when you got players that are there for the right reasons and understand what they're doing with their coaching staff, and vice versa. The coaching staff is know what they're doing and with the right players in mind, pretty much.
Not a coincidence. They're defensive led teams too, man. Like, we're offensive guys, but man. Not a coincidence at all, dude. Not a coincidence at all.
Right, I guess. Yeah, it's a little bit more egos on the offense side of the ball. I definitely admit that. We know where that lies among us, but yeah, it's just interesting. Like I said, I mean, what's interesting to me also is the new tree of coaches. So the Shanahan, LaFleur, Kingsbury, McVay, all under McVay. So it's just interesting to see that tree, because I remember by the time I got to the league and knowing Bill Walsh's tree, that where Mike Holmgren came from, and then Dick Duran, Mike Sherman, just another Niner, Andy Reid, Gruden. Just to see that tree, it's just interesting now to see the new trees that are basically growing from different play styles of offenses. It's mostly offensive driven coaches that are putting together these offenses that have, these double tight end sets that you will think run, but you can actually get sliced up with a pass game from this double tight end. And they're looking for tight ends like a Kittle, like a Higbee, that could get open, that know how to run routes, that know how to basically stretch a defense. And then, like you say, why you love Kittle, he likes to block. He will get in there. He'll get grimy and do that dirty work. So they are understanding the pieces in the puzzle. Because I remember as a high school coach running into another high school coach from the state of Arizona. He gave me what they run in terms of the pistol and what the pistol brings to an offense. And it's like basically you play in musical chairs with certain positions, the tight end position. And now what I'm seeing with Kyle Shanahan, he's taken to another level. He's taking old linemen like he did with Trent Williams. He motioned Big Trent across the line of scrimmage like a tight end, which I know for old linemen, I know if you got to catch the motion across the line of scrimmage, you'd be like, oh man, I feel I'm about to make something happen. But you're coming down there, you're just giving a different look to that defense.
Yeah.
And I think all these coaches from McVay understand that now. You know what? We're going to give a defense a different look, and then they're going to get confused when they see Debo split in a tight end set instead of in a wide receiver or in the backfield. They're like, hold up, what's about to happen? And obviously they don't know, and that's the problem. I think that's something that every coach tries to obviously do offensively, because they know defensive coaches that understand and players that understand and watch film, they could dissect the play real quick before the ball snap. Oh yeah, screen, going to the left. They calling the plays out. So that's where the new tree of coaches are now getting these plays together and understanding we got to do this to throw the defense off one or two times.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. You shouldn't have, I remember I don't know when Bill Walsh, his tree stops and then Mike Holmgren's tree starts. As far as all the people who are there in that Green Bay Packers building.
Yeah.
Or we call that the Brett Favre tree, right?
Right.
How do you want to look at it, right? And all this stuff is great, and it's great drama. It's why we watch, man. It's the reality TV aspect of football is. I don't think there's anything better on air for my money, but.
Right.
Shoot, man, I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl. I know they got a Pro Bowl going on this week.
Yep.
Nobody cares, but let's come back. Let's come back next week and we'll preview the Super Bowl. We'll take a little. We'll dive into both sides.
Now let's definitely do that. Maybe take a little clip of the skills challenge from the
Pro Bowl. So only if they're playing dodgeball, bro.
Yeah, I think they are. I think they do play dodgeball.
Jesus,
it's in Vegas this year. They should have a poker game. You want to really have fun.
There you go. Oh man. So yeah, we'll preview the Super Bowl, and then maybe we'll see if it looks interesting. We'll talk about the skills challenge or even the Pro Bowl, because we already know what type of show that is now these days, where they barely tackle each other. So anyway, because that would be that's going to be my get off my lawn next week. That's for sure. But coming back at you, like I said, Mike already said it. We're going to preview the Super Bowl for the following week, and then obviously talk about the matchups that will be going on in that game, which is going to be interesting. You got a young team in the Bengals, and then you got an experienced team in the Rams. So see you guys next week. And so when you can, download this podcast wherever you listen to your podcast, over Spotify, Pandora, all the fun places. Rate us, review us, give us feedback to make us better with that. And so we have a Twitter. It's on my block. So it's on _my_block. That's on Twitter. And then my Twitter is AmonGreen30, all one word, on Twitter and Instagram. And Mike, let everybody know where they can follow you on social media.
Yeah, MikeWall68 on Twitter, Process to Perform on Instagram. AG, a pleasure as always, my man.
Always having a great time, man. Thank you very much. And everyone, I'll see y'all next week.